Before I get to this video, I found an article. I'm going to talk about this article. Most explosive player for each team in the SEC. Sorry, but this just happens to be an SEC only video because I was scrolling across and found this article. But before I get to that part of the video, can I make a public service announcement? You don't have to believe everything you hear somebody say or put in the title of their video on YouTube. College football is changing. None of us really know how or how much, right? We don't know the specifics of what all is going to change. We don't know how much is going to change. We just know that it's changing. UCLA and Southern Cal joining the Big Ten is huge news. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's 100 other things that are about to happen. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's some hidden top secret cabal somewhere sitting in a back room like the Wizard of Oz behind a curtain pulling strings. It doesn't necessarily mean that. Some random person on Twitter with 17 followers is not a source, okay? A magazine called Swim Swam, an online magazine. It's really not even a magazine. It's more of a newsletter. An online newsletter called Swim Swam that covers college swimming. Is not a source when it comes to what teams, if any, are leaving the ACC. I mean, we got a guy running around like he's the National Enquirer of college football. Like, there's nothing to, this guy, and I love this guy. I've had this guy over to my house. I love this guy. He's not doing himself or really anyone else any favors with these wild, it's conspiracy theories is what it is. He basically has become the QAnon of college football on YouTube. That's basically what it is. This guy, he goes to Twitter, anything he reads, he makes a 15-minute video about it like it's fact. And the reality is, unfortunately, no offense to anyone watching this video, there's a certain percentage of people out there that will believe anything they see on video. So, when you're making 5 or 6 videos a day about conspiracy theories and, this group is running the show in secret and trying to kill off this group, it's getting out of hand. It's getting out of hand. Most explosive player for each team in the SEC. Some of these will be surprising, some of them won't. And there's some defensive players on here too, so let me know what you think about that. And this list appears to be in alphabetical order. Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. No big surprise, the guy won the Heisman Trophy, right? This is according to Saturday Down South. Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. Returning Heisman Trophy winner. Alabama going to have another great offense this year. I do have some questions about Bryce Young's productivity this year compared to last year. Bryce Young's not suddenly a worse quarterback than he was last year. There's not 2 first-round wide receivers on this team right now, though. Jermaine Burton might be their best wide receiver. He's a transfer from Georgia. They're loaded with talent, but I'm not sure there's 2 receivers on this team as good as Jamison Williams and Mechie from last year, okay? Jamir Gibbs is also a very explosive player. He's going to have a lot of home runs, from the running back position, 50, 60, 70-yard touchdown runs. I wouldn't be shocked. Plus, he can catch the ball out of the backfield, too. And what about Will Anderson? He's probably the most explosive defensive player in all of college football. But anyway, can't fault you here. Going with Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. Going in alphabetical order. So Arkansas is up next. And they have a defensive player, Jaylen Catalone. A little surprising to me that they didn't go with KJ Jefferson here. But they go with a safety. Had a good year last year. He was injured some of the year, but still managed to have 46 tackles, 6 passes defended. Couple of interceptions, prototypical NFL safety with elite speed. He'll be playing on Sundays for sure. A little surprised that they picked him as the most explosive player, though. KJ Jefferson at quarterback, you bring Jaden Hazelwood into play wide receiver, but they've got the safety here for Arkansas. Auburn, well, there are no explosive players. I take this back. This might be the dumbest pick of all right here. Auburn defensive end, Derek Hall. Now, I'm not saying the guy's no good. Clearly, he is pretty good. Tank Bigsby's the best player on Auburn's team, the running back. And he's the most explosive player on the team. I think he's the best running back in the SEC. Now, people are going to get mad. Oh, yeah, but Auburn's going to go 4-8. Listen, this might blow your mind, okay? A team can go 4-8 and still have a really, really good player on it. And Tank Bigsby is a really, really good player. He almost entered the transfer portal after last season and got talked into staying. I'd have loved to have had him. And we've got 3 NFL running backs. I would have loved to have had Tank Bigsby. He might be the best running back in the SEC. But they're going to go with Derek Hall. 53 tackles last year and 9 sacks. So really, really good numbers. Will Anderson doubled all those numbers, though, and he didn't get put on this list. But anyway, 13 tackles for loss, too. So Auburn with a defensive end. So 2 defensive players out of the first 3 teams here, most explosive players in the SEC for this year. What about Florida? There ain't many options, unfortunately, if you're a Florida fan in terms of explosive players. You lose Jacob Copeland to the transfer portal, or whatever. I mean, you know, Emory Jones, gone. Anthony Richardson is their pick. Now, from a purely potential point of view, I would probably agree with this. I don't think Florida has very many truly explosive playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. I do like Brenton Cox, the outside linebacker they have. And I think their secondary will be okay. I've got serious concerns about the defensive line. But anyway, you know, they lost to Marcus Bowman, the running back. He transferred out. Now, they say that doesn't matter. They've got 100 NFL running backs. We'll see. But so Anthony Richardson. Now, this obviously is based only on potential, not on anything he's actually done on the field, because the guy was terrible when he played last year. He had something like 6 touchdowns and 7 interceptions and completed about 40% of his passes. But, yeah, he's the most explosive player Florida's got coming back. Whoopity-whoop and whoopity-doo, too. And also, Georgia, they went with Brock Bowers. Hard to argue that. As a freshman last year, he had almost 800 yards receiving. And how many touchdowns did he have? 8 or 9 touchdowns, whatever it was. 13 receiving touchdowns. He had a couple of runs for touchdowns, too, on some sweeps and stuff last year. 938 yards of total offense, because he had some rushing yards as well. Hard to argue that. Most explosive players are tight end. You know, Ania Smith, world-class track speed, but has had a really hard time staying healthy. A.D. Mitchell, a guy that's got a lot of potential, caught a touchdown pass in the national title game. He's the guy that caught the touchdown pass in the back corner of the end zone there about halfway through the fourth quarter. Running back-wise, you know, last year you could have gone with somebody like maybe James Cook, kind of a home run-hitting running back. Kenny McIntosh, I guess, next in line to sort of fill that role. You also got Kendall Milton, but he's battled a lot of injuries. So it's kind of hard to argue this. I mean, Georgia historically, I mean, I hate to say this as a Georgia fan, but how many explosive wide receivers has Georgia ever had? Period. 2? I mean, I'm kind of being a little facetious, but George Pickens and A.J. Green. We only ever had one receiver go over 1,000 yards. That was Terrence Edwards 20 years ago in 2002. You know, Miko Hardman was explosive, but he was kind of a gimmicky type player. Hard to argue this Brock Bowers pick here. He was really, really good last year as a true freshman. Hard to argue that. Kentucky, Tavion Robinson, wide receiver. Last year, this would have been Wan'Dale Robinson, obviously. He was their most explosive player. Nobody else was close. Will Levis is a great QB. Don't know if I would necessarily consider him to be explosive, though. And it's not because I don't think he's good. I think Will Levis potentially could be drafted in the first round next year. Second round, no, I don't think there's any question about it. He'll be drafted in the second round. If he has a good year this year, he could go in the first round. But I don't think you necessarily would consider him a quote-unquote explosive player. So they go with wide receiver Tavion Robinson, former 4-star. Last year, Wan'Dale Robinson had 1,300 yards as sort of their number one option on offense. They'll be looking at this guy to do the same thing this year. Now, you want to talk about elite wide receivers, here you go. I love laughing at LSU just like anybody else does. Their most explosive playmaker, Kayshon Boutte. What up, Boutte? What up, Boutte? He got injured last year, ended up really not playing at all, but he had 9 touchdowns and 38 catches in only 6 games. I mean, that is insane. 38 catches and 9 touchdowns in 6 games. Imagine if he'd have played 12 or 13 games, the numbers would have been absolutely insane. He's a first-round draft pick. He's a Sunday player on NFL. There's no doubt or question about it, period. If you can't see that, then you hate LSU so bad you can't see straight. Mississippi State, pretty obvious to me here. Quarterback Will Rogers got through for 1 million yards last year. He's going to throw for 1 million more this year. Actually, he threw for 4,700, so a little under 1 million, but 4,736 touchdowns. Ridiculous numbers. They threw the ball over 700 times. Insane. What's this? Mekhi Polk had 105 catches last year and over 1,000 yards. I mean, look, it almost doesn't matter who the wide receivers are at Mississippi State. Will Rogers is going to throw the ball so many times, he's going to have numbers. So no surprise there to me. How about this for Missouri? Man, this is somebody I would have loved for Georgia to get, but unfortunately, because of our quarterback situation, we never really had a chance with this guy. Wide receiver Luther Burden out of the state of Georgia, one of, if not the best wide receiving prospects in all of America in this last year's class. He'll be a freshman this year, but they've already got him listed at Missouri as their most explosive player. Don't let any Georgia fan tell you we didn't want him or didn't need him. Of course we wanted him and needed him. He didn't want or need Georgia. He wants to catch the ball, and unfortunately, because of the way, like I said, that Georgia's handled its QB situation, Georgia's going to lose out on some of these elite wide receiving prospects. I mean, that's why Jermaine Burton transferred. That's why we didn't get Luther Burden. That's why, if you look at the class we just signed last year, I think the highest rated wide receiver we signed was something like the 30th best wide receiver in the country or something. We're going to have a hard time getting wide receivers until we get quarterbacks that can get them the ball. Here's one, Ole Miss. Who do y'all think they have listed as Ole Miss's most explosive player? Now, they did lose that quarterback from last year, Matt Corral. Brought in another one. Who is it? Jackson Dart, whoever it is. Running back Zach Evans. Listen, I said Tank Bigsby might be the best running back in the SEC this year. If he's not, you know who is? Zach Evans. I would not be surprised. Y'all remember Zach Evans? He had one of the weirdest recruitments we've seen in a while. The guy committed, uncommitted, recommitted, decommitted, then actually signed with Georgia, but then wanted out, so we released him from his commitment. He then didn't announce for like another 2 or 3 months. He ended up going with TCU. While all this was going on, he got in a fight with his high school football coach and got kicked off the team and had to sit the high school playoffs out. It was just a mess. Just a mess. He ended up at TCU, did okay. Entered the transfer portal after last year. Now he's at Ole Miss. I think the guy's going to go absolutely ham in a Lane Kiffin offense. I think he's going to have ridiculous numbers. I actually agree with this pick by Saturday down south here with Ole Miss running back Zach Evans. South Carolina wide receiver Josh Vann. This surprised me a little because when you have a quarterback that's going to run around a lot, look, Spencer Rattler can. Remember I said earlier, you ain't going to see Bryce Young taking off on a lot of 60-yard touchdown runs, which you're not. Is that going to make the Alabama fans mad that I say that? I don't know. Facts sometimes make them mad. I don't know. You will see Spencer Rattler take off on some 50 and 60-yard runs, or at least attempt to. So I'm kind of surprised it's not him. It's wide receiver Josh Vann. Now, I do agree that wide receiver Josh Vann is the most explosive playmaker that South Carolina has returning from last year's team. I'm just a little surprised they didn't go ahead and just name Spencer Rattler the most explosive player just for the hell of it, but they didn't. They're going with wide receiver Josh Vann, 43 catches last year, 679 yards. And you're going to say those numbers aren't eye-popping, and I agree, but you got to remember, South Carolina started not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 different people at quarterback last year, including a guy that was a grad assistant holding a clipboard on the sideline. He wasn't even a player on the team a month before the season started. He ended up being there week 1. It was just a horrible quarterback situation for South Carolina last year, and Josh Vann still had some good plays and put up some. Yeah, he made a couple of good catches against Georgia. I mean, the guy's legit. So it's hard to argue that. I'm just a little surprised they didn't go with Spencer Rattler just for the name recognition alone. What about Tennessee? It's not Hendon Ho. No, it's not Hendon Ho. They're taking the same approach with Tennessee that they're taking with South Carolina. Both teams have pretty good quarterbacks that could put up some pretty good numbers, but they're choosing a wide receiver again here with the Vols. Cedric Tillman. Tell me about Cedric Tillman, Tennessee Mansas. 64 catches last year. Not bad. 16.9 yards per catch. That's pretty good. He went over 100 yards against Georgia. Went over 200 yards against Georgia. Tillman eclipsed the 100-yard mark receiving, including a 10-reception. Let's see. Against Georgia, he had 10 catches and over 200 yards. Georgia was a pretty good defense last year, if you don't know. Anyway, not a surprise to me. Tennessee, the most explosive player, wide receiver, Cedric Tillman. Texas A&M, another one that doesn't surprise me here. Ania Smith. He's a wide receiver / running back / kick returner. This guy can do it all. I wouldn't be. He'd probably be one of the best DBs on the team if that's what they wanted him to do. This guy can play almost any single position, skill wise, anywhere on the field. But he's going to be really, really good and tough to stop. And he's going to give opposing coaches some nightmares here. I'm sure you all know who Ania Smith is. 4.5 speed, one of the fastest players in the SEC. No real surprise there for me, Texas A&M. Ania Smith. Vanderbilt, Jaden McGowan, wide receiver and a kick returner. It's Vandy. I mean, okay, so no disrespect intended. Another track guy here. He's a high school champion in the 100 and 200 meters, has track speed. 20.6 in the 200. I think Olympic times are in the 19s. So this guy, you know, but can anybody get in the ball? It's Vandy. No. Anyway, appreciate y'all tuning in. Let me know down below what y'all think about this list. Oh, live show tonight, 9 p.m. How about that? Call in, talk some college football. Okay then, have a good morning.